Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Thursday. How are you? What's up, P? Yo. How's it going? How is everybody? 43 people. Holy smokes. You like my coffee mug? Get this? What's the reference? Who's got it? There's two references here. Two references in one mug. Oh, hey, Peggy, did we adjust the latency on the chat? What's up, India? Nimesh, Bandu, Abdelhamid, did I get that right? What's up? I know. So, y'all, we got a great stream for you today. I got a new setup here. Let me mess with the... No, I'm just going to leave it on autofocus. The Weckus, what's up? What's up, Mark? Welcome, everybody. Welcome. I hope that you're all doing well in your part of the world, wherever you are, whatever time of day it is. Thank you for being here with us. We've got... So what are we doing today? We are doing... unlocking GPT-4 insights from your data. So we're going to look at how to, what's the right way to say this? How to chat with your data with GPT-4. Doug's in the background. Doug, nod your head yes or no if I got that right. He's nodding yes. Also, Doug Finke is back, the PowerShell man himself. And so this is going to be exciting. What is up? As an AI model, hello. Well, what's up, AI model? Thank you for being here. Are you actually an AI model? That'd be great. Are there two Schneiders? Do we have two? We have Ed Schneider. Is there a second Schneider? Another Schneider. All right. Listen, everybody. It is Thursday. So before we get started, I have two things. First of all, chat, I have a question for you. I have recently moved from a Mac, and I'm now on a PC for undisclosed reasons of my own personal choice. However, I'm struggling with my speaker setup. I don't know what kind of speaker to add here. It's not built into the monitor, so I need a good speaker, right? And Amazon's just full of various speakers that I can't tell if they're good or not, and I don't want to pay like $500. So chat, can you please... give me some names if you have good speakers that you like. They're Bluetooth or wired or what have you. I would prefer wired. If you know some, drop them in the chat. That would help me out a lot. Thank you. I need free speaker consulting. All right, let's go, y'all. It is Thursday, and that means it's time for the Thursday TikTok throwback. I don't know. Producer, let's run it.
If you get bored of looking at the same icons in Visual Studio Code, you should know that you can change the theme of the icons. And that's why Material Icon Theme is the extension of the week. With Material Icon, to change your theme right away after installing the extension, just enable it. And you'll see that the icon themes have changed. And just in case you're not satisfied, you should know that you can always go to your settings, select theme, file icon theme, install additional file icon themes, and there's several more extensions you could choose to explore.
All right, awesome. Material icon theme. Chat, drop a 1 in chat if you actually use material icon theme. Bose speakers? Yes, but aren't they super expensive? I'm on a bit of a budget over here. Harman Kardon, I feel like that's, Mark, I feel like that's the same, right? Like it's known, it's a brand, it's good, but it's expensive. Whatever Costco has. All right, right? There we go. Now we're talking deals. Audio Engine A5 Plus. I've never heard of that one. I'll have to Google that. And of course, Sean's here. What's up, Sean? Okay, let's get right into it. Let's bring Doug on. You don't have to listen to me pontificate about computer speakers anymore. Hey, Doug, what's up, man? Thanks for being here.
Good. I'm doing great. Really glad to be here. How are you?
Are you a fan of Costco?
No, I don't do. I live in New York City in Midtown, so getting there is a bit of a challenge.
You have Costco's in New York, in the city?
Yeah, there's one big one up north in Manhattan.
Really?
Yeah. You
It's
want to see
like they're
my
just giant buildings. I just don't know where you
That's
would
it.
put
It's
one of
like a
those.
giant warehouse, multi-level parking. You want to see my coffee cup, but it's not rated G?
Yeah.
I
Doug, there's no
apologize.
swearing on the VS Code live
Oh,
stream.
I
You've broken
apologize.
all the protocol.
We'll cut that out in post-production.
We will in the VOD. So, yeah, Sonos. Yeah, but Danny, Sonos speakers are like, they're like $500 for a tiny speaker. I feel like less than $100. This is what I need. PreSonus Aaron Studio. What do you use, Doug? You're on a PC, right?
That's a great question because I just recently, within the last year, put my new system together and I didn't get external speakers. So this is a great question for me. So I'm watching what the people are saying. I used to have like a $200 one with a subwoofer and 2 side speakers, but
was that the Creative Labs setup? I feel like everybody had that one.
I had that like a bunch of years ago. This was the upgrade to that, but not from the same. Creative Labs, haven't heard that in a while.
Simple Sonos ones are under 200. All right, I'll check it out, Danny. I do have Sonos in my living room. I've been like every year I would buy one speaker for the surround sound to like space out the cost. And after 6 years, I finally have Sonos in my living room.
Awesome.
All right. Danny says, go back to the Mac. The troll. Okay, the trolling. Sorry, Danny. Let's do it, Doug. What are we doing today?
Oh, well, you teed it up nicely. We're going to do some data alchemy. Last time I was on, you were watching me do some stuff where I was actually passing data into a bunch of different PowerShell functions I have.
Right.
And you said, oh, wow, that looks a little like LangChain. And you were trying to do some data analysis with your CSV files using LangChain.
I was.
And you're like, can you do that, Doug? And I'm like, I can try. So it was a great question, and it's definitely something people are trying to solve. And then we had chatted a bit, and I don't know if you can hear the horns in the back. I apologize. And good. And so I went back and did it, and I did it in a way. And the whole point is not to pass your data back to ChatGPT, right? You don't want to take your entire 2,000 rows of CSV data or your SQL data, et cetera, and then take that data and say, and then give it to the model. Yeah.
So to provide the chat with a little more context here, after Doug did the live stream, he and I chatted because I'd been working with LangChain, and my wife owns one of those. I don't know if y'all have seen those yard sign businesses where this is like happy birthday. So she owns one of those, and she does that part-time. And so she has, I have this CSV file that I sent to Doug that has all her orders, for the last 3 years. And what I'm trying to do is just chat with the CSV essentially and say, like, how many orders were in 2022? What was the total revenue in 2022? And I don't know, Doug, right? Those were the parameters. That's what I was trying to do.
Yep, exactly. And I was going to go back and clean that data and scrub it so it didn't have stuff. But I actually ended up just taking a subset of the data fields, so less information, but about 500 rows of data. And I worked with that to come up with I hope, an easier tutorial of what I'm doing and how it's working and how to interact with GPT in this way. So
all right, well, I'm excited to do this because I want to apply this stuff myself. And I feel like for developers, we're all struggling to figure out, like, how do we make Chad do something productive?
Right? It's a challenge. It's a challenge.
Let's do it.
Cool. So I have my am I sharing my screen besides my background?
I can add it to the stream.
Excellent.
We have StreamYard Inception.
Excellent. So we're going to do a little bit of a few different things. Ultimately, we're going to work with ChatGPT. We're going to work with PowerShell, and we're going to work with Polyglot Interactive Notebooks. That's a mouthful. Polyglot Interactive Notebooks, for people who don't know, is it's like Jupyter Notebooks, but it works all based off .NET. So you can do things in C#, F#, PowerShell, and they have support for things like KQL, Mermaid, HTML, JavaScript, and the list goes on. And Python is in review, so you can actually grab a new version that's not general availability, but you can actually use that and then have Python as well. Or you can stick with Jupyter Notebooks just for the Python piece. So what I wanted to just kick off, and I guess we hope it's not going to take too much time out of the demo. We'll just do it this way. So if you want to follow along, you can go, if you have Polyglot notebooks or you have a console and you want to edit a file, you can. I'm going to be using my PowerShell AI module, which I modeled completely after the Python implementation that OpenAI did. So basically all their function calls, when I squint, I can see Python looks a lot like PowerShell. So I was able to take all of the OpenAI Python pieces, and it wraps all the REST APIs to GPT. And I basically replicated that inside of PowerShell and then did a bunch of things to make it more PowerShell friendly. So once you install that, so now this is a Polyglot notebook. And so if I can run this cell. So it's like as if I'm typing in a PowerShell console or running a script. And every cell that I create can actually talk to the previous cells if the variables get set, so on and so forth. So as you can see, I have the PowerShell AI installed, and I have PowerShell AI functions, which is a new feature that OpenAI released in the last few weeks, where you can actually get OpenAI to figure out what external APIs you call by passing it a schema about your functions. But maybe we'll talk about that at some other time. So hopefully this is not going to be too long. I'm going to do some PowerShell coding around what we're looking at today. Hopefully it'll go well and we can get through some of the good juicy parts. So I took the idea that Burke teed up, and I created the CSV file, right? So up top we have the properties. Is that big enough font?
Yeah, that looks good to me.
Good.
Chat will complain if it's not.
Okay. Cool. So just order ID, customer IDs, product names, categories, etc. First name, last name. Excuse me. So this is a CSV file, and inside of PowerShell we have something called an import CSV. And if this gets too long for this part, I can just copy paste some stuff in and get going. So I can do a $PS script, and it's called combined. And when I run this, and I can
CSV or CSVD.
There you go. Thank you. And so what I'm going to do, just copy the full path. I worked this yesterday and it all worked, and that's unfortunate. Slow. Let me just restart the server. We're not off to a good start.
Is it reading? What's it doing? It's just reading the whole CSV?
So it read the file, and in PowerShell, when you do an import CSV on a CSV file, it takes all the contents and it converts it to an array with as an objects. Chat doesn't complain, we simply critique. Awesome. So it reads the file, converts the CSV, it takes the property names, and since it's PowerShell is built on .NET, it converts the CSV into an array of objects with the property names as an object-oriented object, if that makes sense. Okay, so I think I did that. Let's read the data into a variable. I'm just going to print out the first few records so I can do array slicing, and that looks a lot better. And I also have something called
PowerShell does spreads. I didn't know that.
It does array slicing. Yep. And I can actually then transform the data set and just look at it like it's a table, right? So, okay, so that's some cool PowerShell. Now I want to make a function out of this and do some more pieces. So what I'm going to do is a wee bit of a cheating. I don't know if it's cheating, but I'm going to go to the prepared menu. I already made the souffle. What I wanted to get to is I can create here. Let's create another code cell. And I have something called get CSV schema. So you can see here I am passing in a path. That's going to be my CSV file. So this can work with any one of them. And I'm going to read that data. And let's turn on line numbers in here, and I can say, I want to grab the first record of that, and I just want to go after the property names. So let's see what that does really quick. I've got names. I'm going to run this. Nothing's going to happen. And then I'm going to put another code window, and I'm going to grab this file. And now I can say get my new get CSV schema, and we can run it. And you can see I just picked out all the headings, right? That's the headings of the CSV file. And this is something you can do in JavaScript. You can do it in Python, whichever language you like. And they all have SDKs into ChatGPT, just like I have the SDK for PowerShell. So let's take this one step further. So instead of just printing out the names, I'm now going to take it, I'm going to make it a hash table in PowerShell by saying @ curly brace. And I'm going to give it two key value pairs, table. I'm going to grab the CSV file you pass in, and column names are those one I just saw, and I'm going to drop that into the hash table. And then I have to convert to JSON, which is part of built into PowerShell to convert that hash table into JSON. So we'll run this one again, and then we'll run the schema, and we get a nice little JSON format. Now, that's also very doable in most languages. All languages have CSV capabilities. You can grab information about CSV files or SQL servers, and then you come up with something like a table name and columns. This is a schema for that CSV file. And one thing that ChatGPT loves is JSON, right? So I now have a formatted form. Exactly. So I have a nice formatted way to work with GPT. Let's go take that a little further. So now that
I did learn that, Doug. I did learn that ChatGPT really likes JSON, and I learned that from the type chat that we just released. I don't know if you've looked at that. They did some demos here internally, and I didn't. So I understand now that GPT really likes JSON data because it's structured and it can deal with that very well.
Exactly. I played with type chat, and of course, I think Anders Heidelberg is on top of that. He invented Turbo Pascal, Delphi, C#,
TypeScript.
TypeScript, and now he's doing type chat. So basically, whatever Anders does, I follow. But and it loves JSON. It also loves YAML because it is structured stuff. So if you start playing in that mindset and going, oh, well, maybe I can put this in this kind of a structure, and ChatGPT is trained on these different specs, those formats.
Is ChatGPT the only person on the planet that likes YAML?
No, all the large language models. I'm not sure what you were asking there, but the large language models.
I'm taking shots at YAML, which is low. That's a low blow, Burke. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think somebody said one time, if you took, I can't remember now, if you took XML, if Python and XML had a baby, it'd be YAML or something like that. But yeah, YAML is not my favorite. It's not my favorite. I hate white space stuff. Python's always a challenge. So cool. So we have our JSON, right? So let's go one step further. So now that I have that, let me see how I want to talk about this, because I thought I could type faster than that. So let's grab this and go from here. So now I'm going to create, so I'm going to clear out all the outputs, create another code cell. And I like using code cells inside of notebooks, and then later on I can actually grab all the text and I can actually put this into a script file. But this way it's a little bit easier, more modular to work with. So now inside my chat CSV, I can pass in a CSV file. I'm going to change that. I can pass in a CSV file. I can get the schema, as we can see on line 8. And what am I going to do with that? So I'm going to build my own chat bot. Well, not really a chat bot, but just a way to call into it. And one of the things that the new versions, the GPT-4 versions, and I call them new, even though they're only several months old. Prior to ChatGPT Web, you had text in, text out. That's all you can do. You pass up a prompt, you get back a response, and you're good. Now you can actually you can communicate with a chat, and you can have a turnaround conversation. So you can send it a prompt, you get a response back, you send more prompts, and you maintain the entire conversation. You pass it up each time to GPT, and that's how it gets context, and that's how it has a memory, so to speak. So inside of the PowerShell module and other SDKs, so if you use Python, etc., there's a way that you can create the different kinds of messages. So I have something called new chat message template, and if I can get the role, and you can have 4 different roles: assistant, function, system, and user. So I'm going to be just using system and user. Assistant is what comes back from ChatGPT. Functions is for the function stuff that I just recently released and that OpenAI has. And what's interesting is about a system message is that that's what creates the steerability of the model. It kind of grounds the model. So let me grab some more pieces, and I'm going to just basically send it. And a system message is text. It's another type of prompt. It's actually a prompt with a special, and when you send it up in this format, it all gets converted to JSON. This gets converted to JSON, and it gets passed into ChatGPT. And that JSON format is what the model begins, is how you programmatically work with the model. And the system role sets up the steerability and grounds the model in lots of different ways. So what I'm going to do here is get the correct syntax. And I'm setting up and saying, okay, you are a programming language expert. Now that's a variable inside of PowerShell, and I'm setting that as a default as a parameter. Hopefully we'll get to that. And I'm saying, so this will show up and say, you are a PowerShell expert. Please answer the questions based on this CSV file here, whose schema is below. So if I just run this up really quick, and I'll print out messages, and I'm going to use this format. And here I can say chat CSV. That's what goes up to GPT, right? You are a PowerShell expert. Yeah. Please answer the questions on that file whose schema is below. Straightforward so far?
Yes. So, you are, but you're not sending up the CSV file. It doesn't have any access to that. You're just telling it you're just giving it a file path, but to GPT it's just a string. So why pass that in?
Exactly. I'll show you why it's coming up. Good question. So now I'm going to flesh out my system message. I'm going to flesh out this prompt, and we'll see what other goodies it does. Okay, so get rid of the first part. Already did that. So now I've added whose schema is well. I'm giving it some instruction. I just want code. I don't want, no explanation of the code is needed, and don't show me any usage. So typically if you ask this kind of a question and you set the persona as a programming language, what GPT will come back with is saying, it'll do something like, hey, this is how you do what you're trying to do. Here's the code in a fence block. And then at the end, it tells you how, shows you how you can use it, which is super helpful and really great. I don't want to do that for my demos because I just want to be able to go after the code. And then down at the bottom line 17, 18, I'm not only passing in the file, I'm also passing, remember, we're getting the schema that I did before. And I'm dropping that into the message. So let's take a look at what that does. We'll run it, and then we'll call ChatGPT. So this is going to be the system message that I pass up every time. Okay. I'm passing up the file because it's going to use, GPT is going to figure out that CSV file is what I want to operate on. And it's going to use this schema to construct code that I can actually operate on the code in that file, which we see in the next cell. Does that kind of make sense?
A couple questions here, Doug. Yeah. For a giant data set, would you downsample it to just property names first?
So this technique that's here is I'm just taking the schema of whatever I'm working with. I'm not going to pass up any data, and that'll become a little more apparent in the next set of steps. So instead of having it process the data, I'm going to ask it questions and let it figure out from the schema how to give me back PowerShell code to operate on the CSV file. What?
All right. So I have a question, which is, why? Again, I'm going to go back to this because I don't understand. Why not just say, please answer the questions based on the CSV file whose schema is colon, right? Like, why is in other words, like, how important is the specificity here of passing in the actual file name?
Oh, that's only because that is passing in the file name, and I wouldn't have to put in the entire full path, but that's so it knows how to, it's going to come back and show me an import CSV on a file name. It's going to construct that.
Ah, okay. So the
That's
code
why.
it generates needs to know about the path.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And I'm just kind of like honing in and making sure it knows that. It could probably guess it from like the combined table, but I find that it sometimes gets it, sometimes not. So I give it a, I don't like going for the 0 prompt capability. Give it a couple of examples. You know, I don't want to do minimal prompts. So I kind of like want to set it up and get it as far along and be sure that we're doing the right thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it totally makes sense. I mean, I know how important specificity is to these models. And that's always the trickiest part, is like holding your mouth just right.
That is absolutely correct. And the problem is this is not like mathematics, and it's not like computer science. So it's more like rhetoric, right? Learning how to communicate and talk in this way. We're just not used to it as software people. And it's a definite mind shift. So
yes, we are running PowerShell inside of IPYNB. That's Polyglot Notebooks. It's an extension. Check it out.
Exactly. Check out the look for .NET Interactive Notebooks on GitHub. It gives you all the instructions on how to set up this polyglot interface inside of VS Code, and it does all the downloads of .NET frameworks that it needs, and you're off to the right. It has kernels for C#, F#, PowerShell. If I click on here, these are all the kernels that they support. JavaScript, KQL. It's a really cool environment, and as I said earlier, it actually is Python is coming. So cool so far?
Yes.
Excellent. So now what are we going to do? So now we have this. Now what we want to do is I only have the steering message. I only have the system message. So let me go and grab how we're going to construct the we're going to construct a query. Did I get that right? Nope. Yeah, that looks good. So now I have in the same chat message template is role user. Okay. And I'm going to pass in the prompt as a parameter, like, you know, what are the top products I'm selling, right?
Right.
So we have our system, we get its steerability, we got our user, we put that in, and then on line 24 is where I actually call my SDK and get for something called get chat completion. Again, PHP, JavaScript, TypeScript, all these languages have SDKs that are similar to this. That's what I modeled this after, and I did it in PowerShell so I can have being in a language that I like. Yeah. So what you're seeing here is you can then tweak this and take it and make it in a language that's easier that you like to work with. So now line 24 is kind of the magic sauce. That's where I'm going up to GPT. I'm passing in the messages. I'm giving it the steerability. I'm going to give it the query. And then I get the message back. And in the message, it comes back as this object. And I go after the first choice. And I go for the message. And I go for the content. So let's pick a prompt. Let me see. And here's a good prompt. So how many orders are there? Nice and easy. I like asking easy questions for GPT. It kind of gets GPT in a good mood. So let's see if this works. Get the right quotes. And I'm going to pass in CSV file. I don't want to just take the default. So that's what it looks like. So I'm going to pass in the prompt. I'm over engineering and passing in the actual CSV file. Let's run this up. So also I like about Polyglot Notebooks, I get a timer on the left, right? So there's some data, there's some programming, and let me get rid of, oh, this is great. So somewhere in here I have, I'm printing out the actual, oh, I didn't run this again. Let me run it again. I don't know if that's going to help, but we're going to try. Let's try that again because I just want the code, but it's also giving, there we go. So that doesn't look like much, but it actually figured out from the schema, from the file name, and the fact that I set up a persona and said, you're a PowerShell expert. And it came back with the right import, and it came back with the right code to say,
this is what you need to run. Right.
So this is a little different. Now, this is really cool. It's really effective. And again, we always talk about don't trust Chat GPT. You know, chat but verify. Last time I said, you know, Chat GPT is like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're going to get. Now, I'm not concerned. The later now I'm using a GPT-3.5 turbo model, so it's gotten a lot better in terms of hallucinating. It's gotten a lot better. I'm not concerned that this will come back and tell me to format, give me a format my disk type thing.
Remove system 32.
Exactly. So I'm confident in that stuff. And again, well, I'm going to show you some more things. We're going to go with more questions and different other techniques. But this really starts to get you along in the process of understanding and get some intuition about GPT. What can I do? Can I be effective? So I can sit here and I'm now beginning to wrap natural language in PowerShell around asking questions to my data. Happens to be a CSV file, but I have other examples that can do other types of data sets, right, in different types of formats. Let's go on with a couple of more. Let's grab another. So what are the categories?
Quick question, Doug, if I could.
Yes.
Could you just execute, because I believe that what LangChain does is it's actually executing the query for
that's
you.
Why I like,
right?
That's why I like pair programming with you, Burke, because that is exactly the next step. So
okay, gotcha. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
No. This is I rather you say it, tee me up, and this is great. So ask any question. If it's coming up, I'll let you know. If I have no clue, I'll put it in the parking lot and we can talk about it.
All right.
So since PowerShell is a dynamic language, right? So I'm going to ask, what are the categories, right? I'm not going to pass in the CSV file this time. Let's see what it comes back with. And I'm going to answer your question about the LangChain. So there we have, looks pretty good to me. That's actual good PowerShell. I'm not going to run it. We're going to answer what Burke just said, because LangChain actually executes the code. So in pretty much any dynamic language, including Python, right, you have an eval capability. So you say, oh, this is code.
Run it.
And go take it. So I'm going to take my chat CSV, and it executed the code. I'm out. It's been a good time.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Next question. How do you know that this is right?
That's the whole thing with AI. That's one of the up and coming from Microsoft. There's something called prompt flow, I think it's called. Right?
Yeah.
So right. So that this really cleaves the problem and how you create solutions. It's not the way we're used to, right? So how would I even debug through this thing, right? You're not. So how do I make sure that this prompt is correct and it's correct over time? How do I know about all these different questions, or is it coming back with the right stuff? So you need to set up your own scaffolding. You need to set up scaffolding, and that's what prompt flow is going to begin to answer, which is coming out, I guess, in next year, early next year. You actually take your prompts, you take your sample data, you take your sample system prompts, and then you run these things through, and then you compare the results when it executes, right? So now you have to start figuring out, well, and if you change the prompt, like if you put, I'm going to say a comma here, and it could change what the results are, right? So
yeah,
beginning to learn how to do prompt engineering is fundamental, right? And it's not going to make a difference what LLM you're using, if you're using a personal LLM or whatnot, but you're going to have to test your prompts, right, to know that it's actually coming up. I know this is correct. It's one of the reasons I went down to 500 records and I did a smaller subset of the property names for the CSV file. You will get an intuition if you begin to play. So this is a great way to sandbox and play with information and data. Even if you're sitting there working with GPT with let's say a SQL database, you can dump the schema, you can pass it up the same exact way. You can tell it to generate the schema. It will actually do the joins and the inner joins and the limits and the top and all the goodies. And it does it 90+% correct. And yes, don't check that into production. And you have to come up with a methodology and a mindset of how do I test it and how do I set up the scaffolding.
Yeah.
Question.
So
I like to have another.
Yeah. Danny says that he likes to have another LLM verify the output. And now I've noticed this as well, right? That you can have, like, this is true for Copilot as well. You can feed the code that Copilot generates back into Copilot and tell it to improve it or fix it. And it's pretty good at that.
At 100% correct. So folks, if you don't know the name Andrew Ng, NG, I guess he built Developer AI. It's an online, he's like one of the top data scientists on the planet. He loves LLMs, and he's put up a bunch of free courses. He's partnered with OpenAI engineers to actually deliver the courses with him. And this is one of their courses that they actually, their set of video tutorials that talks about exactly that. How do I take my prompt? How do I moderate it to make sure somebody's not asking a violent question? When I get the results back from LLM, how do I moderate it to make sure it's not off the rails? Then how do I actually construct another set of prompts to check my data? And that's, again, that all flows into the concept of prompt flow from Microsoft that's coming, right? This is what we need to build if you want to go down its path, which I think is amazing, cool stuff. You need to build those muscles and that mindset and that expertise.
I'm just looking for this developer AI.
I think it's called Deep Dive Developer.
Deep Dive Developer.
Something deep. There we go. I think I. So here's the main page. Deeplearning.ai. I can drop that in the chat. I don't know if everybody sees that.
Build your AI career with deep learning AI.
Yeah, and these folks are, and they're partnering with the top engineers from Hugging Face, from OpenAI, and more to talk about how do you do these things, how do you get your money, how do you do semantic searches, and yeah, it's a different level of doing things, but in a matter of lines of code in my SDK, I'm adding natural language to my PowerShell stuff. Now, I wouldn't put it in I would give this to other developers that I work with, but I can further wrap this into an Azure function and give it a REST endpoint. I can wrap this into a GitHub action. I can put a web page behind the Azure function. So this is just kind of like the how the sausage is made, and you get some really amazing results. Now I'm going to kick it up one more notch.
Okay.
Let me see.
It's like a cooking show.
we're going to go for
spice.
go for some dessert. So now I'm going to come back to this, and I'm just going to have it output the code. I don't like what I did here, but let me see if I get a better. Let's see if this is. I'm going to ask the question of that same data. Is the show how many orders for each. See what it comes back with. So I'll just look at the code. I'm actually looking for an object or an array of objects with properties. So if I use the shortcut, I use the alias in PowerShell IEX is invoke expression. Cool. Now I'm going to get real wacky. That's not a lot of data, but actually what that did was came back with enough code, knew how to use the group object inside of PowerShell to group it, and then do it so it could summarize each year. It actually parsed the year as well. So that's really slick stuff. So here's the year, and it actually parsed that out and grabbed the year correctly. It's kind of mind-boggling. So if, again, let me just run that without doing that, invoking the expression again. So here's the group object, and it knows here's one way that you can do parsing in PowerShell. It grabs the order date, it splits it on the / and it picked up the last one. Now, if my date was different, let's say it was European, where it was year, month, day, I can, in my system prompts, specify an example of that, and it would know how to then parse it. So again, this is all about developing intuition, maybe not pushing to production. We're only at GTP4, we're only in August, but these are some really valuable approaches. Let me
that's very cool. I mean, that's exactly what I wanted to do, right? The only thing is, like, and then what, right? Do I give it to my wife and be like, hey, just ask this thing anything you want about your business and it'll tell you, right? Like, what is the chat? I'm curious what you think. Like Richard said, I'd love to do this for invoicing data from a document management system.
Absolutely correct. You're at all of these questions are great.
Production applicabilities.
Yep, production. I don't answer production issues. No, those are great questions. I'm going to show you something in a little bit more. How much time do we have?
We got about 10 minutes. Doug.
10 minutes.
We're good. 10. You need more than that?
Pressure's on, huh?
Do you need more than that?
We'll see.
Type real fast. Yeah.
Right when it gets to the sweet spot, I'll just cut out. It'll be good. So what I'm going to do here I also have another module in PowerShell called it interacts with Excel. You don't have to have Excel installed on your machine. Sorry, Microsoft. And it actually creates the XLSS, and it can manipulate the data. It can put all kinds of goodies in it, pivot tables, charts, and whatnot. I put it out a few years ago. It's got about 3 million downloads. Sorry for the commercial.
Whoa. 99 cents per download?
It's free.
But Doug, you could have made it 99 cents.
Dude, you're busting my chops. Well, it was back in the day. When I first put it out, I was like, everybody was like, why are you writing that? I'm like, I think it's cool. Anyway, so I have something in there called Export Excel. And let's see what we can do. I'm going to take that. So I'm talking to ChatCSV. I'm getting code back. I'm executing the code. And I'm going to take the output and see if I can get it, what I can do with Excel. So all I'm saying is export Excel because I pick really good default values on that function to do a bit of nice stuff. Let's see what we get. So it took 14 seconds. Here comes Excel. So I just took that data. What was that? That was sad. It actually looks like it picked up an older. Let's see. Now this is one of the reasons. This is our first hallucination. So for some reason, I'm sure that the code that it's coming back with is being. I want to restart this guy. So I'll restart the kernel, but I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to get rid of that. So we don't have to run it again, and then I'll run it from the top. So I don't know. I don't know if you can see this. Can you see my shirt? No, you can't. Oh.
No, it's treating it like the green screen.
So my
shirt says hallucinate. What does it say? It
says I hallucinate more than ChatGPT. So we got our first hallucination. I was hoping my shirt would protect me. And it looks like even my, see, this is not good for demos, right?
This is demos. It's always like this. The demo gods may or may not smile on you. You don't know.
Exactly. And yeah, and of course I ran through this last night, and so I'm just bouncing out of this for a second. See if I can just open it. And then one of the things that's really cool about, I like VS Code. I've used a lot of them. There's some people talking about some new editors that have even better integration with GPTs or LLMs. I haven't used them, but yet working with VS Code, how it restores the environment, even at the level of restarting notebooks and whatnot. Let's see if I try and run this again. So we get it detects the kernels. Hopefully it'll pick the .NET Polyglot framework. Come on, you can do it. So much for my last 10 minutes. Oh, come on. Wow.
Well, while you're doing that, let's see.
Yeah.
What's the @ sign on my wall? I went to a flea market and they had a bunch of letters they'd taken off of some big building and they were all rusty. And I saw the @ sign and I was like, I know what to do with that. So I stuck it on my wall and I put some Casa LED lights on it. Cheap decorations. I like it. I think it looks good.
So that's not working the way I'd like. Right. Any other? We can answer on the. Let me let that cook in the background. So what I did do, I went kind of to your question about production potentially, even though I just showed that this thing hallucinated. But then again, if I see putting this stuff in something like a GitHub Action, perhaps, or in a sandboxed way, and I can run a bunch of different things against it, and then check the outputs as time goes on, which is pretty much how all the LLM OpenAI folks, Hugging Face, they all work with their LLMs, right? They have huge suites of tests of prompts, and they do checking pre and post. So what I did here is I wrote a 40-line PowerShell program, and it basically just sets up and says, okay, where do you want to put the output? I'm going to put it in this folder called PS scripts. Use that combined CSV. We'll see if that works. And I give it a list of 5 prompts, right? 2 of them we've seen, and we'll see what the others do. So I'm going to loop through, and I'm just going to write a progress bar saying which prompt I'm working on. I scrub the prompt, and I just put underscores in. I take out dots, commas, and quotes, question marks, so I can get a good output file. and I'm going to name it as PS1. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting the prompt in, and I'm just capturing each prompt's PowerShell result that GPT comes back with into a separate file. And then, well, let's see what we got. So I'm going to put it into this PS scripts. I'm going to run it from the command line. And I think let's go with run as scripts. And let's do process prompts and hope demo guides. So there we go. So it's off and it's talking to GPT. It's using my SDK and PowerShell. I'm saying how many orders, and then you can see on the left, that one came back.
Categories of the orders.
Right. So now I'm actually generating the PS1 files. So if I click on the file, so that's the question I asked at the top, and here's the code to get it done. That's the question at the top. There's the code. And you can see 4 and 5 will come in here on the left. So now I can actually sit here and have these as artifacts out of my process, right? And then I can run it, I can lint it, I can do all the kind of things with it. When I do run it, I can put them in unit tests to make sure they come back with the correct results. So I can actually set up a CSV file that of known data, run these through tests, and I'm good to go. And of course, because I'm using Copilot X, I can grab that code and I can say create a pester test for unit testing for that code. I can actually put all that into yet another set of prompts and run that programmatically. So I can generate my PS, just the same process I'm doing with CSVs. I can then take this as a next step in my workflow and say generate pester tests, get me to a certain level. And once I'm comfortable with how my system prompts work and my prompts work, I can use this in a very effective way, I believe.
That is very cool, Doug. I mean, that's exactly what I was trying to do. So I guess last question I have for you here is, like, why this versus LangChain? Is it just the PowerShell aspect because LangChain is just JavaScript and Python, or?
Well, LangChain, I'm not positive. I'm pretty sure you can set it. I haven't worked with it in depth. It is Python based, so I don't tend to reach for Python when I do stuff. I'm trying to build a LangChain type thing for PowerShell, right? Why learn Python? I believe you could do the same technique in LangChain, right? I think you can just pass in the schemas of stuff.
You can, but it's at least when I've done it, it's a little bit more abstract, right? Like it gives you answers in natural language, not in code. So if you say how many orders are there, it will say, you know, devising plan or whatever. And it's like, I need to know which column the orders are in. Okay. Now I need to sum up the orders, right? It just tells you, but you don't actually know what's happening until you get the answer. So it's very difficult to figure out why you got a wrong answer. In my experience.
I haven't played with LangChain. My guess is potentially changing your prompts. You could specifically ask, I want code, not natural language. I don't know. I have heard that LangChain, you know, while it's top notch, almost all of these systems LangChain's been around for a while. They do suffer from using older LLMs, as well as, I don't know if they suffer, but you know, GPT-3 is not GPT-4 at all, right?
Yeah,
so
that's because you get, you know, 3.5 Turbo is cheap, right? Like I have the $10 API limit and I never hit it. I call it all the time.
I just did this I did the same thing, and I test my module, I add features, I run tests against it. I don't get a bill for more than $7 a month doing all this kind of stuff multiple times in a day. So LLM, though, people have talked about how it's very abstract and you can't get into certain things, but they have an amazing team. So we need to see where it goes. So again, like, where's type chat going to go? You know, where is the auto GPTs going to go with this, which is a kind of a competition for LangChain. So it's something that if you want, you keep an eye on it. And yes, it's like anything else. Like, what language do you use? Which LLMs do you use? Which GPT workflow automation do you use? We're in that space. And again, you know, ChatGPT Web only came out less than a year ago. So, you know, having this is how you do it, here's best practices, you can get some of those, but as you saw, I've done this demo for myself multiple times. I built it over the last week or so, and I was getting solid answers, and today it hallucinated. I don't know why. So, you know, this is it's beyond promising. And again, I'm not going to make the recommendation that you put it in production, but if you learn how to work this, you'll develop your intuition, you'll develop your prompt engineering skills, and you will be surprised at how you can build some really cool systems. So
yeah, that's awesome. A couple comments from chat here before we go. Dave says he loves Import Excel. He's using it now.
Awesome. Thanks for using that.
I'm telling you, Doug, take it down, repost 99 cents, and then give me half for coming up with the business model. All right.
Didn't the guy who built MOQ just take down? It's been around for 100 years.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw some stuff on social media, but I'm gonna steer clear of that minefield.
Well, I've known about Dan Casalino for years and years, and he's always done amazing work, and he made the choice he did. But that's the challenge of open source. Like, I never knew my module would take off or so. So, you know, if I put it out there for $1, people would be like, why am I paying $1 for this? You know, it's a tough choice.
Well, Dave, would you pay $1 for importing? Do y'all remember, chat, when iPhones first came out, there'd be like games on there and they'd be like 99 cents and you'd be like, I'm not paying 99 cents for that. It's so ridiculous. It's $1, man. You can't buy Tic Tacs for $1. All right. Have you ever had an 8-hour conversation with ChatGPT before? No.
I haven't had a single 8-hour chat, but I wake up in the morning with my iPad, and maybe this is too much information. I don't roll out of bed. I just grab my iPad and I will go to ChatGPT and I will talk about, maybe I dreamt about some stuff or I had some thoughts, and I will interact with ChatGPT about it. It's an amazing brainstorming tool. Amazing. Yeah. Even with code, you open up a blank page to anything about any topic. I can talk to it about Shakespeare. I can talk to it about coding. It's just the responses, and I don't get things from ChatGPT like, who the hell would think of that, Doug? What are you, off your rocker? I get like, oh, that's an interesting question. Here, let me help you with it. And it's just, I find it an amazing interaction.
Yeah. So I think what we've learned about you is that you wake up in the morning and talk to ChatGPT about Shakespeare, which is,
and then I go out into the forest. Okay. I go out into the forest and I dance. Go ahead. Going way back.
Last one, Doug. Going all the way back. How can people learn better PowerShell basics?
Great question. Follow me on, that's a longer answer. Follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah,
I talk about PowerShell all the time. You can, if you want, follow me. You can direct message me. I'm happy to chat about this and point everybody. There's tons and tons of resources. I have a repo called Tiny PowerShell Projects on my repo. So there, thank you. There's the PowerShell AI repo. Check that out. I've got videos on there, write-ups, the whole 9 yards. Take off the PowerShell AI, look for Tiny PowerShell Projects. I ported a Python book to PowerShell that talks about how to do testing. It has puzzles and games that you can actually use. They're not complicated, and you can learn how the capabilities of PowerShell, the basics, how to do testing, et cetera, et cetera. So follow me. I have more resources.
Very nice. Hold on. I'm just responding to work stuff here. Well, my Bluetooth keyboard's not working. Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Hold on, chat. Okay. Doug, thank you so much for being here today. Chat, thank you for being here. Y'all are great. Y'all are great. You make the stream fun. So thank you for that. Normally we do a lightning round, but we've already done that. And yeah, I've got another meeting to bounce to, so we had to cut this one short. Y'all check out the PowerShell stuff that Doug's been working on. It's awesome. And I don't know, we'll have to have you back, Doug. You're super popular. What shall we do next time?
I think we should do OpenAI functions and how you can call your external functions from OpenAI.
I like
it.
You can that sounds great.
Legacy APIs, and I'll of course choose PowerShell, but I'll show how you can do it to any language.
Awesome. All right, chat. Thanks for being with us. Y'all have a great weekend, Doug. See you later.
Thank you, Burke.
Bye, y'all.
Later.